Well, good morning. It's so good to be back with you here at Unity of Melbourne. Can you believe it? It's Lent already. Already. You know, when we were children, we think time just crawls and creeps and moves ever so slowly. The older you get, the faster the calendar pages flip. But Lent is a time for renewal and release. Release and renew. We see that even in nature. Up north especially, it's really obvious when in the fall the leaves change colors and they fall off the trees. And then everything is dormant for a while. But while things are dormant, after things have been released, there's a whole lot of growing that takes place inside. But when we think about Lent, we have been conditioned, if you were raised in a traditional Christian environment, conditioned to believe that Lent was a season for giving up something that you like, something that you cherish. I know when I was a child, we were told to give up candy, cookies, ice cream, sodas, and the sweets, and those things that we really, really liked as children. And I'm the original Cookie Monster, and I don't know about any of you, but before the second Sunday in Lent came about, I was back in my cookies. Cookies and Utz potato chips. If you've never had an Utz potato chip, you gotta try it. I'm still addicted to Utz potato chips, and I am still a Cookie Monster. I had an uncle who's no longer with us in physical form, but watching him taught me a very valuable lesson about giving up things for Lent. Now, normally, his name was Walter, but his nickname was June because I also had a great uncle named Walter, so you say Uncle Walter, nobody knew who to answer. But, June, he liked his scotch. But during Lent, he gave it up. And on Easter Sunday, he drank all of the scotch that he would have drunk for those 6 weeks. I actually have a picture, and I started to include it in my slides, and I said, no, some family members might see this and take offense. Easter Sunday, my Uncle June would literally drink himself to sleep. And I have a picture of him asleep in my grandfather's recliner. But that's not the point of giving up something for Lent. The purpose for this season of what some people like to call sacrifice, the purpose is to grow. And as we release those things that no longer serve us, or we release those things that we enjoy, but are however detrimental to our physical well-being, the purpose is when you release it, let it go for good. Let it go. All of those ideas and thoughts and beliefs that we held that are no longer our truth, let it go for good. Don't pick it back up. Do not pick it back up. If somebody tells you you are unworthy and you have made a commitment to yourself and to your spirit that this Lenten season is going to be used for me to fully appreciate my self-worth, why are you going to pick that back up on Easter Sunday? Why do you want to? You let it go and let it be gone. Don't come back with, well, I gave up, and this is something that I used to do when I was a kid. I gave up cookies for Lent. It's Girl Scout cookie season. What sense does that make? So when I said I gave up cookies for Lent and then the Girl Scouts came around, it's like, oh no, that's just wrong. That is just wrong. It is against my nature to give up cookies for Lent or any other time of year, to be honest with you. Now, I don't eat as many cookies as I would like to, but I'm not going to stop eating cookies. I have a friend, I work part-time as an administrative position down in South Florida. And I have a friend there at the office who has been bringing in Girl Scout cookies. And I have not taken the box home. She brings them into the office to give and to share. I limit myself to 4 cookies because I could sit down and eat an entire box of trefoils. That is the, it's like draw the line. Draw the line. If you like something that you know is not good for you, draw a line and don't cross it. Don't try to give it up like June did. There's no point. Physicians even tell us, as they advise us as we get a little bit more vintage, I know my doctors are telling me, but you shouldn't eat so much of this or you shouldn't eat too much of that. He's never once told me don't eat it because he knows I'm not going to listen to him. But we have come to an agreement that in dealing with my cholesterol challenge, I don't eat as much shellfish. But I eat it and I enjoy it and I cherish it and I thank God for it. In his book, the foreword of the book, Keep a True Lent, Charles Fillmore wrote these words. The Christian world is once again observing the Lenten season, the season of prayer and fasting that precedes the joyous festivity of Easter. It is commonly believed that the Lenten period has to do with the events of the 40 days preceding the resurrection. Understand, however, that Lent is a church institution. And there is no true biblical authorization for this practice that we have assumed. There's nothing anywhere in the New Testament that says that for the 40 days leading up to the resurrection, we're supposed to go through this, what do you want to call it? Habit, tradition, dogma of giving up something that you like. That's not what it's about. The sacrifice that they're talking about is not about anything more than releasing those things that stand between you and your spiritual truth, that stand between you and your divinity. Giving up alcohol is good for the physical body and mental body. So if you choose to give it up, what are you going to do at the end of the 40 days? Are you going to be like my Uncle June? Are you going to be like me, the kid who was sneaking the Girl Scout cookies anyway? What are you going to do? You release those things that stand between you and the truth of who you are. You release those things that no longer represent the true you. You release those things that are harmful to your spirit, your own spiritual awakening, and the spiritual awakening and growth of the people around you. That's what we give up for Lent. Now, Charles Fillmore said, and this is again from the foreword in Keep a True Lent, the idea of giving up and sacrificing does have a spiritual basis. Moses, Elijah, and even Jesus observed a 40-day period of prayer and fasting, but they did it as preparation for spiritual work. They didn't do it because they were conditioned to believe, I have to give up something for Lent in order to be who I am. They did it specifically to prepare themselves for the spiritual work that was ahead of them. And we understand that far too many people have made a fad out of giving things up for Lent. It's fashionable. But is it spiritual based? Is it based in spirit? Or is it one of those, look at me, look at how wonderful I am because I'm not eating cookies for 6 weeks. Who am I helping? Who am I helping by not eating my trefoils? Not a soul, not a living single solitary soul. And I am going to eat my trefoils. Every time that girl brings a box of cookies into the office, I'm going to grab 4 and then I'll go sit down. Because I don't want the cookies to disappear before I get my 4. Lent is a time for us to let go of all of the things and thoughts that no longer serve us. That means the beliefs that we have been holding on to, sometimes from the time we were able to form a conscious thought. It means we let go of our ideas, the erroneous ideas and beliefs we have about ourselves, about other people, thoughts about our health that may or may not be, and probably are not true in the spiritual realm. I don't know about you, but one of the books that I have in my library that I keep at hand anytime I feel anything is Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life. When you have a physical challenge, I dare say 99.9% of the time, there's a spiritual reason for it. And if you get to that spiritual cause, you can generally overcome it through affirmations, through prayers, through changing things in your lifestyle. If you cannot overcome it completely, you can at least get it under control and live with it joyfully and peacefully. Lent is a time where you have to stand firm in your truth and understand that God is our source. So stop worrying about money. Stop worrying about, am I going to have enough to cover the high cost of gas? Gasoline is like 20 cents more every week, seems to me. Somebody said every day. It's changing every day. I was literally at a BJ's gas station a few days ago, and I saw the truck pull in, and I knew the next time I went back, the price was going to be higher, and it was. Thank God for BJ's, though. Some of these gas prices I see on the street are downright scary. Let go of any ideas and beliefs you have of being unworthy, not good enough. Remember in Timothy, we can do all things through Christ. This is a perfect time to exercise that power of will, that willpower. Exercising that power of will. We understand where there's a will, there is a way. We understand that the power of will is the ability to choose, to lead, and to decide. Make conscious choices based upon your spiritual awakening and awareness and your truth. We understand that the power of will is represented by the disciple Matthew. And we understand that Matthew represents our decision-making power, that part of our brain that empowers us to choose and make those decisions and achieve those things when we walk in alignment with our truth. We know where there is a will, there is a way. And we make that way by standing again and walking in our truth. The will is the executive faculty of the mind. The executive faculty of the mind, and it carries out anything that is determined by our I am. So as you're claiming your I am, claim the truth of who you are. I need to move this a little bit, I'm sorry. Claim the truth of who you are in spirit. And you can only understand who you are when you spend time in meditation, in the silence, giving yourself permission to be divinely guided by spirit, by that indwelling Christ. This is again from Charles Fillmore's Keep It True Lent on page 30. The dissolving power of spiritual love is the antidote for a dictatorial will. Remember, we have to use our will through a clear understanding of our divinity and our spiritual connectedness and our spiritual rights and obligations as a spiritual being, which means using our will to control, coerce, or make another individual feel less than their own divine selves is metaphysical malpractice. Okay? So as we stand in our own truth, it is necessary, essential for us to understand and accept that someone else's truth may not be our truth. To stand in awareness that what we see as right for our children, and as a parent and a grandparent, trust me, I've been through this. What we see as right for our children, for our grandchildren, it's not always the path that they were put here to follow. And that's a hard one for parents. That's a very hard one for parents or for grandparents. But we must understand that their path is their path. Our parents' paths, that's their paths. So when we don't agree with something that our parents may be doing or want to do, we've got to give them that same space and that same freedom and understanding that their path is their path. A long time ago, I read a book called The Right Use of Will. And that was the premise of that entire book. Let go, lovingly nurture, but let go. And give people the space and the permission to be who and what they are. Now, I said that about children, but it also applies culturally. There's no one religion. There's only one race, the human race. All cultures have value. And we use our power of will to affirm that wherever we go in doing all that we do. We honor the fact that we are one. And our will empowers us to shine that light and spread that message. Lent is a time for us to exercise our power of will. Spiritually, spring cleaning. That's what it is. It's spiritual spring cleaning. Getting rid of all of that stuff that we don't need, that nobody else needs. Let it go. Let it go. And it's not just for 40 days. It's not just for Lent. Lent is a good time for us to remember this. But this is something that we are called upon every day of the year. So basically, we can look at this 40-day period as a time for us to focus on strengthening our muscles, our will muscles, our spiritual muscles. The word Lent actually comes from an Anglo-Saxon word meaning spring. And during the spring season of the year, the days are longer. As I mentioned earlier, the trees are starting to bud again up north. I know we got trees blooming and green all year round, but trust me, when you live north of, let's say, North Carolina, maybe some parts of Southern Virginia, when wintertime comes, there are no leaves, and there is usually no grass. So, springtime, the flowers are starting to bud. The grass is starting to come up. The world is awakening. This is a time for us to celebrate our spiritual awakening. Lent is a time for us to nurture that spiritual self in whatever way works for you. Retreats, book study groups, classes, they go on all year round. But Lent is a very special time because this is the time for us to truly focus on strengthening our spiritual muscles to carry us through the rest of those 365 days. 2 Timothy, first chapter and the 7th verse. And I'm reading today from the English Standard Version, so it's really simplified language. For God gave us a spirit not to fear, but of power and of love and self-control. So as we go about these 40 days, let's use this verse. Not in fear. We're not walking in fear, but we are walking in the power of unconditional agape love and self-control. That means that while I may want to eat that whole box of trefoils, I only take 4. That means instead of my Uncle June drinking himself into a stupor on Easter Sunday, he could have had a shot maybe every couple of days and been happy and been fine. That means that there's one particular friend of mine who, just for Lent, for as long as I've known her, which is about 20 years, she gives up all starchy foods. And then on Easter, one of the first things she does is get a big old piece of cake. I'm sorry, it just makes no sense to me. Another verse I want to share with you from the English Simplified Version, Standard Version, is 1 Corinthians, the 9th chapter, verse 25 through 27. Every athlete exercises self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable wreath or a trophy or a Super Bowl ring. But the bottom line is, God does not box us in. Scripture goes this way: I do not box as one beating the air. I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I find myself should be disqualified. You know what that means? It means, in plain, simple language, I empower my body, my spiritual being, through my exercise of prayer and meditation, my exercise of studying truth. Otherwise, I'm no good to anybody else. I cannot help the world if I am not exercising my spiritual muscles and developing my spiritual awareness and growing more deeply aware of my truth each and every day. There's no such thing as I've already studied all I need to study. You know, if quite honestly, if you feel that way, there's no point in you being here any longer because you have nothing else to offer to the world. So I'm going to get ready to leave you now with an affirmation. But before I do, I just want to share with you these words of advice. Love, let go, forgive, live in peace, be peace, and spread peace. And now I'd like for you to share. I'd like to share with you this affirmation, and we're going to read it together. I choose my good based on spiritual understanding. I choose my good based on spiritual understanding.